Good day, Christy. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm pumped to have you on. I always like having fellow coaches, and especially given that you're, a pre and postnatal coach, I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you because I do work with some people like that, but I'm always kind of guessing around the challenges.
Yeah,
But I want you to introduce yourself. I kind of already gave away a little bit of yourself. Introduce yourself. What do you want the people to know about you and what you're doing now?
so I'm Christy. I grew up in California. I live in Utah now. I've lived here for since 2013. And I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I have four boys, so they're 9, 6, 4, and 1.5. So it's very busy at our house, very loud, but it's so much fun. And yeah, like you said, I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach. I've been doing this for the past 3 or 4 years. Before then, I actually had a career in apparel design and product development, and had been doing that since about 2010. So I started personal training before that while I was going to fashion school. And I worked at a gym, and that's when I really fell in love with strength training. And it really opened my eyes because before then, I had done like machines, like random machines. I would go to the gym and, mostly do cardio, the elliptical, and which there's nothing wrong with that. But I hadn't really done any traditional strength training, or I was like a little bit scared of the weight room. But it was a great experience. I loved learning more about that and helping other people. And then while I was there, I also got introduced to endurance sports, so I helped coach a running and triathlon club, which was super fun. And I fell in love with endurance sports. So I did my first triathlon during that time, half marathon, full marathon. With my first full marathon, I had a goal to qualify for Boston, and I did it.
Wow.
So determined. There was a lot of craziness that happened that day, but I did it, and I ran Boston. And before I had my second baby, I did a full Ironman. And so I really loved that area of fitness. But since having, after my second, I've kind of rested a little bit from endurance sports because it takes a lot of time, and really focused on strength training after having, more and more kids. So yeah, but that's, like you said, I'm super passionate about helping people kind of wade through all the BS that's out there in the fitness and nutrition world, and just make it more simple. And especially with prenatal, postnatal, postpartum women, helping them navigate that whole world. Because I just see a lot of really bad advice given out, especially within that postpartum period. And after going through it all, it just has made me more passionate on helping that population, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually where coaches come from. I think the best do. You're going to come from a place of empathy. Watching someone go through what you went through in some way is going to really, connect you to that person, connect you to the pain. You're going to really, embody what they're going through. It's like, hey, I've been here. Let me walk you through this, because you don't need to pay attention to this stuff. But what an incredible journey that you came from doing Ironmans, marathons. Like I did one marathon. That was a battle. It's so cool to hear that. Like it takes a certain personality in an individual to find that enjoyment in that long duration process. And I tried to be, I'm not going to say hybrid athlete. I just tried to jump from all these different approaches to appreciate it. And I'm much more of a lifter, but I get it because it's that accomplishment of holy shit, I ran that far. And just so people understand, to be able to qualify for the Boston Marathon is no small feat. How long did it take you to do your marathon to qualify?
So I should have looked at the times because it was easier back then than it is now. So it was, I ran it in 2011. So I qualified in 2010, I think. So I think my time was 3 hours and 43 minutes, or was it? Yeah, it must have been 3 hours and 43. And I think the cutoff time was 3:45 or 3:50 at that time for my age group. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, It was crazy. I had never, in my training, I had ran 22 miles. That was the longest I had ever ran. So I was like pretty nervous to go up to 26. But something crazy happened that day. The bus, there was supposed to be a shuttle bus to take us to the start because nobody could get dropped off right at the start for whatever reason. They just didn't want all that traffic. And so, but that bus never showed up. So there's a bunch of runners there and they're like, just like get in. They had a bus because they had traveled from somewhere. So they're get in our bus, we'll go, but they wouldn't let us get dropped off right at the start. So we had to get dropped off 2 miles from the start. And so I basically had to run 2 miles to the start to start my marathon. And so I was just like, I was so mad. I was just so determined. I'm like, I'm going to qualify. Like I was very determined to do it. But
So you ran 28 miles.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. And man, I've been through it. Like there's just something different about the body after mile 20, like 21, 22, everything just gets so deep and that's incredible. I mean, it's just, I love that determination though. I had that in the first time I tried to beat my time in a half marathon where I was trying to hit the time and you get this determined mindset. It's like, I don't care how fucking hard this hurts. I'm going to go. And to me, like I say, it takes a certain personality type because my brother loves it. And you have to have an enduring personality type. You can endure this because it's not like it's very low level, but it's lower level than something really intense like sprinting, right? But you have to endure that so long and be okay with it. And so it does take that personality. So that's really good. And it's going to help you in life, especially to be able to endure 4 kids. My goodness, you are in the thick of it. When I saw 4 boys on your profile there, I'm like, okay, are they older? Are they middle? So no, you're in the thick of it right now. And the ages, they're all just starting to grow. I think that's so exciting. Let's dive into this because, you're helping people or, women pre and postnatal. What do you think? Let's start off with what is kind of the same rules that need to apply? And then we'll talk about what is different for an individual in that case. Like, what do you think women need to really pay attention to that's basically the same, the fundamentals, and then how would it be different for them?
Yeah. So what's really cool, I feel like there's more and more studies like coming out on like prenatal fitness and postnatal. And that was something that I was really confused about with my first pregnancy. So I kind of just, I was too scared, I think, to do what I had been doing. I didn't want to like ruin anything. I didn't want to mess anything up. I just stuck to machines, which is fine, but I know that I could have done more. And so as I've learned more, like really when you're pregnant, there's not a whole ton that you need to change. Like with my last pregnancy, I followed pretty much my same program throughout my whole pregnancy. And I just made slight modifications. Like, towards the end, I was lifting a little bit lighter, just because I knew I didn't want to put that much pressure on my pelvic floor or core. Like I could kind of feel like where my weaknesses were. Like I wasn't strong enough quite to lift that heavy without like bearing down on my pelvic floor and creating some issues there. So yeah, just like little modifications like that, lightening the weight, instead of maybe laying flat on a bench to do a bench press, or dumbbell chest press, like doing it at the incline bench instead. Cause it's kind of hard to get, in that
Up
position.
and down. Yeah.
Yeah. With like, kind of without your whole core kind of like doming and putting excess pressure on your core. Or just doing a floor bench press instead. That could be easier. And for me, there's so many different like things that could happen in pregnancy, like different aches and pains. I had something that's called SPD, and it's basically just like, it feels like your pelvis is like tearing apart. It's really painful, but something to like help with that is just to avoid like single leg movements. So, I, mostly did, instead of doing like lunges could hurt people, or like single leg, hip thrust or something, it could just like put pressure on your pelvic bone that is uncomfortable. So you kind of have to like listen to your body a little bit. as you're going throughout pregnancy and as you feel different aches and pains, because you do have like the relaxin hormone that is kind of relaxing all your joints and ligaments, as you prepare, get closer to delivering your baby. And that can kind of make things a little bit more unstable, I guess. So, exercise caution, like if you haven't exercised prior to pregnancy, like you definitely can start exercising during pregnancy. And I think you should, but just start like how any beginner would start. Like maybe it's body weight exercises or light dumbbells, and kind of like progressing through there is what I would recommend. And then just being like conscious or aware of the pressure that you're putting on your core, because as your baby is growing, your linea alba is like kind of that, it's a ligament, I'm like losing my words, but it's kind of like stretching, and that's kind of what keeps your six-pack ab muscles together. So being aware of like, are you putting like too much pressure on that where it could create more of an abdominal separation? And every pregnant woman will have a degree of abdominal separation. And some after having your baby, some it will just heal on its own. And for a lot, like we just need to do more exercises, like specific exercises to kind of strengthen your core again and bring those muscles back together. If that makes sense. So
yeah, what's the term for that again? The diathesis, or what's that?
Diastasis recti.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the separation of the abdominal wall, which makes sense because you're growing a child, you can't have the same abdominal wall, no different than your hips and everything are going to change. And it's really good to know about the relaxin and how that affects the single leg. I honestly would not have known this. This is new information to me because I love giving single leg work for everyone. And I think it's really healthy for the hips, but it's great to know that this could be a dangerous thing for females in prenatal, as you mentioned, that it could be more difficult for the pelvis floor. So in that case, do you feel like it's probably, let's say someone is experienced lifting, but they're maybe into the second, close to the third trimester, still trying to be active, this might be a good time because we're trying to take pressure off the core to shift more to machine work, to work on more isolation work, if you have access to that. Because, I mean, if you don't do single leg work and you have experience lifting, a goblet squat is guaranteed to going to put pressure on the abdominal wall. And not to mention, you're probably strong enough that it's going to mostly hurt shoulders anyways. So I feel like you're only, and that's where I would usually say, hey, do single leg because it puts more pressure on one leg. But now we might just need to go to more simple machine work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's definitely, it really is case by case with each person, like how they're feeling. Cause not everybody will have that pelvic pain. Like I only had it one time in my pregnancy. And when I had it, that's when I was like, okay, I need to shift to, stop. Cause it was just like too painful. But so some women, it might be okay. But yeah, I think machines are great. And honestly, like, I feel like the third trimester, you're just getting in movement for, to kind of with endorphins, like, helping you feel more mobile throughout your pregnancy. It's not necessarily trying to lift as heavy as possible to maintain that strength, but yeah, but I do agree that machines are a great alternative especially if you are having that pelvic pain.
Yeah. And great point. That is everything. It's always this, never a rule. It's always, it depends. And I love when I'm talking to any coach in any realm and I try to say something, they say, well, it depends. It's just a great sign of someone who appreciates nuance. So that's a great answer. When you're going on the other side of things in the postnatal and you're talking about exercise. So, what's the rough kind of guidelines that you give them? How soon after, and let's imagine that they have some training, but maybe not crazy advanced, but somewhere's in moderate experience.
Yeah. So what I like to do is like the first week you can start doing things, postpartum. And that was different from my experience with my first baby. Again, I was like scared to do anything too soon, but you can start doing, really it's to start with breathing exercises. Cause when you're pregnant, a lot of women tend to just like start breathing in their chest, and they kind of forget how to like do a full diaphragmatic breath, like breathe all the way into your belly. And like, and that is super important to kind of help your pelvic floor and core to start working together. Again, because pregnancy, it just is hard on your body and kind of messes things up a little bit. And so just connecting your core again to your breath. So you can do that from the hospital bed, just like working on your breaths. And then if that feels good and you feel okay, like doing slight pelvic floor contractions with that, and kind of working with your breath with that. And that's all, again, things that you can do from your bed. And then from there, you can kind of just progress into some more like deep core exercises to kind of, like I said, with diastasis recti, help those muscles come back together, and just kind of learn how, wake up your muscles, like your abdominal muscles, those like deep muscles, to kind of help bring your abdominals back together. And these are all like very low impact. They're not like a traditional workout, I guess, but things that you can do just a couple minutes each day that is going to really like prime your body for exercise later on. And then with that, walking, like starting with what every woman is going to be different, like what they feel comfortable with. Maybe it's just like 2 minutes a day for like the first or something, and kind of progressing from there, and just really listening to your body, watching your body. If you start having like symptoms, like really like a heaviness on your pelvic floor, or more bleeding, or like any lightheadedness or anything like that, like definitely stop or reduce the intensity that you're doing. But I think walking is so underrated sometimes, and it's such a great way to like get your body moving postpartum. It helps so much, like mentally and emotionally, when you're dealing with like, all these hormones shifting and your emotions are, all over the place. You have a new baby that you're taking care of. So I think walking can be great, like mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then like 6 weeks is when you typically get like your green light, if everything's okay, from your doctor to, my doctor said you can do anything that you were doing before you got pregnant. And which is interesting. Like there's more nuance there, I think. So coming from a runner, with my first baby, when I had that, 6-week appointment, she said, okay, you could do anything. But my body was not ready to start running. I was, I needed to do a lot more work, more of that pelvic floor and deep core work, to get my body ready for running. But so with that, like, take it with a grain of salt. The doctors aren't trained, to really like assess your pelvic floor and deep core. So what I always recommend is to go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. And you can do that before your 6-week checkup. I also did that during pregnancy. I forgot to mention that, just so they can kind of assess your pelvic floor, deep core, and give you like specific exercises to help you individually. Because some women might have like a very tight pelvic floor. Some might have a very weak pelvic floor. Some might have both. So it can be like, and the symptoms overlap for a lot of these. So going to see somebody in person is super helpful for that. And just to give like more reassurance, like, hey, you're on the right path. Like you're going to be great. It's nice to have more people in your corner, I guess, to assess you. So I highly recommend finding that. And I know insurance, you're in Canada, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I don't know how it is in Canada, but I know in the United States, like most insurance companies won't cover pelvic floor therapy. But I think it's well worth the money. Like if, it'll save you time and heartache and maybe injury. If you can go see one, even just one time, I recommend it. But yeah, from there, like 6 weeks is when I typically would start easing back into strength training, and I wouldn't lift as heavy as I would like my last day of pregnancy. I was going a lot lighter, and just like getting used to all the exercises again without a belly, because your center of balance changes when you're pregnant. And so just kind of like easing back into strength training. and working on progressive overload from there is what I recommend.
It's great advice, really concerning about the pelvic floor right off the bat. When you look at the overarching spectrum there of like what the consequence is, it is a long-term issue. I know individuals who had uterine prolapse, and it's like after having several kids, and now it is a forever issue. It's something they always have to worry about because they weren't taught how to maintain that, pelvic floor. And so any lifting is problematic, any training is problematic long term. So you're looking at long-term health. Now, I love that we're coming from both ends of the spectrum here, because we have to appreciate that humanity came from women not having anything, right? So when you say you can train, like, this is important. You don't have to be so delicate with yourself. It's totally appreciate you want to take care of the life. You don't want anything bad to happen. But just remember, society came from women living in, the wild, and we lived, right? So you can handle more than you think. And at the same time, you have to consider certain things. And this is one to pay attention to because of the long-term consequence. And because you want to be able to, you mentioned it so well. It's like, in bed, like when you're first getting over it, this is great. You have something you can do, because especially if you're someone who came from a little bit of fitness, or you're concerned about your fitness beforehand, and you're definitely concerned about it after because the woman gained some weight, they're mentally health conscious at this point, for sure bothered, you immediately can take steps in the right directions. It's great advice. Just the breath, like, hey, just worry about that breath, that diaphragmatic breathing. And that's just something people, whether they're pregnant or not, don't do enough diaphragmatic breathing. So that's a great advice, that you're hitting that on the head and giving them those stages of progression. And I think that's really what people need. They need just those simple things that they can control. And especially, as you mentioned, the effect of going for walks and how important postpartum mental health is. Because I remember talking to my mom. She's like, no one talked about this in the past, and so many women dealt with it. And so it was just something that they didn't talk about. And it's a high level of prevalency, because it is a very emotional and physically difficult thing. And so, hey, going for walks might actually improve this. Exercise might improve this. You're going through a very difficult time. So it's a really, really great tip there. I love all of those. Do you have any advice when it comes to nutrition on either end of those, whether it's pre or post?
Yeah, for prenatal, it really depends. Like, for me personally, and I know, many women, I feel like the majority that I talk to deal with morning sickness, which is really like all day sickness. It's never just in the morning. So, it's typically that first trimester where that's, at its peak. So just do what you can. Protein is always going to be great, because it will help you feel, I don't know, it'll just, when you get hungry, the nausea just like gets worse. So protein can be helpful if you can do like a protein shake or something in that first trimester to help fill up your tummy so you don't get too full. And I feel like a protein shake could be kind of mild, whereas like, I know chicken just sounded awful that first trimester, like a lot of meat just sounds awful. So I think that's good, but it really just, get your protein in. Fiber is super important. A lot of women deal with like constipation and, those types of issues. So getting enough fiber is going to help a lot with that. And really, you don't, like, a lot of people say you're eating for two during pregnancy, but you really actually don't need that many extra calories while you're pregnant. I think some people overestimate that, but just do what you can. There's, guidelines of how much weight you should weigh. And I know women who are way over that and are totally fit and healthy and everything. So I always just advise to just talk to your doctor about any concerns about weight gain, and they can help you with that. But yeah, postpartum is tricky. I feel like that's where I see a lot of women trying to do extreme things to lose the weight that they gained during pregnancy. And I would give the same recommendations, like just focus on getting enough protein and fiber, like fruits and vegetables, enough water, especially if you're breastfeeding. That's the time where if you are breastfeeding, that you'll need more calories than you were when you were pregnant to maintain your milk supply. And so during that time, I would advise like that's, like I said, a lot of women want to do extreme things to lose the weight, but they're breastfeeding. Like, what do I need to do? But it's hard, but I think it's just a time to be patient and know that you will lose the weight eventually. But just be patient with it, because you don't want to do like an extreme calorie deficit. And if you want to continue breastfeeding, that's going to be difficult because it might affect your milk supply if you do that. And so yeah, that's what I would recommend. Just a whole, balanced diet. You can track your calories if you want. I wouldn't recommend that, I think, until like at least 3 months postpartum, just because in those first 3 months, you're already so stressed, like dealing with so much with a new baby. If you have other children you're taking care of as well. If you're going back to work or something, there's just so many other life stressors. And then to introduce like a diet or calorie deficit in the mix with that, could just create more stress and make it a little bit, make everything a little bit more difficult. But so it really does depend on each woman. I know some who are able to track their calories and do like a slight calorie deficit and see success. But some women, it's not until they stop breastfeeding where they're able to like really lose weight. That's how I felt for me. Like I always held on to some weight until I finished breastfeeding. And then I was able to lose weight a lot faster. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to answer because I understand the struggle. Like it's so frustrating not to fit into your old clothes and to not kind of feel comfortable in your body. But, I have the benefit of looking back after 4 pregnancies and postpartums, like that I know that your body does return to normal, but it just needs some time. And use that time to like build up skills and habits. Maybe instead of focusing on like cutting calories, you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to hit 120 grams of protein each day, or drink as many ounces of water, different things like that to kind of help you make progress. So when you are at a point to do a calorie deficit to lose fat, that you already have all these good skills and habits under your belt.
That's great. Again, what can you control in the moment? That's the key that people really need to have. And I love all that because you nailed it from the beginning. Like just from talking to females who are pregnant and stuff like that, that you're going to be lucky with what you can stomach, right? Yeah, like I even know people who are huge meat advocates, and I remember seeing this interview with one woman who's like literally going on podcast after podcast saying how much she loves meat. And she's like, yeah, I can't eat meat though. My baby does not like it. And it's just like the pregnancy she had at that time, it just wasn't happening. And you do have to do what you can going into pregnancy. Concern yourself about vitamin mineral status so that you have a healthy baby. Make sure you have folate, right? There's a handful of things that you can take care of that are just be healthy with what you can get in, right? So that's always I don't have much advice for people when it's prenatal, obviously, because I have no idea. But even those who have an idea is like, we don't know. You just got to experiment, right? And then on the other side of it, really key advice that I think gets overlooked: be patient in that breastfeeding time, because yes, you gain the weight, it's normal, and you're really excited to go in the right direction. So you're like, I want to get this fat loss phase going. I want to get rid of this baby weight. I want to get out of here. But it's super important that we still are concerned. We're kind of still in the pregnancy in some sense. You're still in it. It's still part of the process. And, I've had a client before where I just kind of said, like, think about the cost. Yes, you have to be slower. You can't jump into the deficit. You can be healthy. You can still be starting to walk now. You can start doing all these things. You're doing all the right habits in the right direction. This is what you can control. But, look at your child and just remember that you get that to be healthy in the end. Is that not worth it? Right. And most mothers would actually agree with that. So I think it's be patient for sure in the first few months. And in that same client had a similar thing where it's like, probably, and I don't put this off because she even says like, I wonder if it's my hormones that are just off. It's like, probably you just had a child. You're now going through, breastfeeding. This is the first time, like there are certain cases with individuals who are in a fat loss phase where you can talk about hormones if they have a thyroid issue, but this is for sure a time. There's no question your hormones are going to be off, but it doesn't mean that you can't slowly lose weight after. It's just right now we have to be patient with it, and that you will probably see that weight loss happen once your body settles in, once it's like, hey, I'm no longer a pregnant woman breastfeeding. So it's great advice. Now let's take this into just motherhood, because again, you got the expertise that I don't have. So I'm loving to hear this advice, especially from a mom of four. I know I have four siblings and I was a pain in the ass. What advice do you have for mothers? Like, what do you think they really need to know about fitness, managing fitness around their family?
Yeah. It's a big question. So I think I think this is where I see a lot of women get caught in like an all or nothing mindset, like because you are so busy. Maybe if you're a stay-at-home mom or a full-time working mom, um, you're so busy like day to day that it could be difficult to think about, okay, well, when am I going to work out? Like I can't go to the gym and get a workout in, like, and so they just don't do anything at all. They don't start anything. But I wish more people knew like the barrier to entry is so much lower than you think. Like just do something. Like maybe it's just you start with a 5-minute walk each day. Maybe it's just like a 15-minute strength workout if that's all you have. Like when I, with the fourth baby that I had, I would split up my workouts. Like I kept doing like, I would have a lower body day, upper body day, and a full body day. And I would split up each workout into 3 throughout the day. So I would do like 15 minutes in the morning when he was napping. I would keep weights in the main room. So the kids were like playing or watching a show or something. I would do the first part of the workout. And then like midday, I would do the middle part of the workout. And then afternoon or evening, I would do the last part of the workout. So I kind of like split it up, and that worked great for me. But I know not everybody lives in their workout clothes all day and is able to do that. So, but if you're out of like that initial postpartum period where your baby and your kids are sleeping through the night, I highly recommend waking up early to get your workout in first thing. I think that it just sets the tone for the day. You're guaranteed to get your workout in because you never know what might happen throughout the day where it might prevent you from doing your workout. And so, yeah, if you can get up early and do your workout, I like highly recommend that. And then, like I said, like if you aren't able to do a full 60 minutes of your workout, just do what you can. You don't need to like skip it completely. And so kind of losing that all or nothing mindset.
That's great advice. The workout snacks, like it's really good for strength, by the way. Like I hope people can actually understand this. Because you were talking about doing a lower body day and upper body day in a total, right? So you're doing a lower body all in one session, you compared to breaking it up in the 3 15 minutes. If you were to actually do that competitively, like in a gym, not that we're talking about that, but it's just super valuable to know that it's like you would actually perform better if you broke it up into 3. And so your body would actually get more strength from that. So not only is it like good to fit that in if you can at home, if that's your scenario, it's great for strength. Like it's great because you have more energy. You actually get to have maybe a meal in between. Then you go do another thing. And just what you had mentioned is so important. It's like lower the barrier to entry. Just enter the barrier, right? The all or nothing is terrible for everyone, but I can imagine it's going to be so bad for mothers and parents because it's a chaotic life. It's like expect things to not work out. And if things aren't going to work out, what's the lowest barrier that you can have? Because the best way for momentum to end is if you think it's nothing. Even if because some people even embody that. They say they're an all or nothing person. I like to go all in. You have actually declared nothing eventually, because the probability is you're eventually going to have, nothing, because no one can get it all the time. So it's like, I'm either perfect or I'm not. It's like, so you're telling me you're eventually okay with being not. And rather you reframe that for yourself and say, okay, I'm always going to try to maintain my lowest barrier to entry. And people need to value that you only need like one hard set of something in a day, and it does something, and I used to get some people to do this. I'm like, okay, you're busy in this day. Throughout the day, I want you to do 100 bodyweight squats within the shortest window period that you can. And it's like you're doing chores, you're doing whatever, 100 bodyweight squats. And it's just something, be like, I did something. I did something. You know, if a person doesn't have a high level of fitness, that's actually enough to make their legs sore, right? That's enough to do something. So it's a matter of just trying to make fitness fit your life, that rather than you fit fitness, and having those ideas. I love the early morning too. Huge advocate for that. Way more likely going to get it done. Those are great tips. I think people need to figure out, and that's also a person dependent thing, because people will say, oh, I'm not a morning person. It's like, okay, you're going to have to figure out something that's going to be your lowest barrier to entry, the easiest way for you to get the thing that you need to get done. I think that's all really good advice. What do you think? Are there any other tips? And it could be, you know, working out or nutrition, that maybe mothers don't think about when it has to deal with making sure they show up for themselves?
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about this too. Like, I feel like a lot of women have mom guilt for taking time away to go exercise. And I know that's something I definitely felt with, more so when I was working full time, and I didn't want to come home from work and then take more time away to go work out. But it is so important to make time for yourself and to work out. Like you mentioned earlier, it's just like, you have this kid now, like, be the healthiest version of yourself, the fittest version of yourself for your kid. Cause, so you can live a long time, so that you can be strong enough to like lift them and play with them and all that kind of stuff. So there's just so many benefits that are going to benefit your family. Not to mention the mental and emotional benefits. I know I'm a much better and happier person when I'm able to get my workouts in. And so, yeah, don't feel guilty for taking that time away. Another concern a lot of mothers have is on the nutrition side of things, they don't want to have to make two different meals, like one for their family and then one for themselves, because they're trying to eat a different way. And so with that, I mean, a lot of times I know my boys are the pickiest eaters in the world. So I feel like we have to make like 5 different meals anyways for all of them. But you don't necessarily have to do that. Like, there's like little swaps. Like, for example, we do burrito bowls all the time at our house. And when I just got done doing a little mini cut, and during that, we do rice, ground beef, grilled vegetables, salsa, cheese, and all that good stuff, black beans. And what I did, I had all the same stuff, except instead of doing the normal rice, I made cauliflower rice for myself. And it was just like 5 minutes in the microwave. It wasn't a whole different meal. I was eating the same stuff, just I swapped the rice out with cauliflower rice and was able to, stick to my calorie deficit a little bit better that way. So there's little things that you can do within your meals to make it fit your goals. So you don't have to make completely different meals for yourself and for your family. But yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. With like working out, again, I feel like it's a good example for your kids too, to see you exercising and really focusing on getting strong and like trying to be the strongest version of yourself rather than just exercising to lose weight. So kind of shifting that mindset. That's been a huge thing that I've seen with a lot of my clients is looking at exercise as a way to get strong rather than as a way to lose weight. Just helps motivate them a little bit more to work out, because it doesn't feel like a punishment as you're doing it. And so with that, like having them pick out a goal, like, okay, like, do you want to be able to do 5 push-ups from the floor or a pull-up, or, having like a specific strength goal along with their fat loss goal is so helpful, I think.
It's great advice. Mom guilt is huge. I see it with my mom. I see it with so many moms, that they need to put their family first. And I think so many people, even business owners, like anyone, will want to put something else first ahead of their fitness. But when you reframe it, it's like, are you your best self without fitness? And they have a hard time saying that they're not, right? So if you're not your best self, then are you showing up the best for the thing that you desire and love? And it's not. Now, then you try to reframe it for yourself again. Are you willing to go through the discomfort? Because that's what it is. It's just a discomfort of having to go through the fitness, having to do the nutrition, doing the thing that you're not good at right now. You'd rather just go take care of your family, and then you feel like you're doing what you should for your family. But if we're only asking for like 15-minute workouts a few times a day, is it really about just showing up for your family, or is it an easy reason to put yourself aside? And so that reframe is going to be huge. Is always know that it's going through the discomfort of the thing you don't want to do for your family. And I mean, obviously both of us are biased. You just mentioned, and I'm the same way. If I don't work out, I can go crazy, right? And I always feel this way when I'm talking to someone who's not really consistent with nutrition or training, or just doesn't do it at all. It feels like I'm talking about a religion, and I'm trying to get them to join our club. You'll feel better. Everything's brighter on this side. Trust me. It's great. You'll love it. I mean, it's really torturous at first. You're going to hate everything. You're going to feel sweaty. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel broken. But after, it's great. And it's like, the funny thing is, both of us are laughing because that's exactly the experience you have after everything's better. It's just, and we can't even describe it well enough because it has to be experienced. And I think I want to push this message out more for people. First 2 to 6 weeks, and then 2 to 3 months. Like if you get over the first 2 to 3 weeks and be consistent, everything gets way less harder. Like it is so hard when you're out of shape to do something consistent. And if you get over the first 2 to 3 weeks, then all the things, like you're recovering better. Like that's the first key, is to recover better. Then the first 2 to 3 months is where you start seeing strength gains and you see results. Then everything seems worth it. And it's just like an afterthought if you're consistent in those time periods. And that's where it all changes. Then you're like, yes, I am the best version of myself for my kids. Yes, I'm absolutely doing this. And my kids will appreciate that I'm doing it, right? Because they see me stepping forward. Like you say, being that demonstration. And I love that you own the Be Strong. That is a great message coming from more women. And again, you want to influence your kids. We've had the generation of just the weight loss influence on females. It hasn't been positive. It's not like something that is going to get your kids super inspired in a healthy way. Don't get me wrong. If you had like aerobic goals, your kids saw you run, and it's like, hey, I'm going after a goal. They're always going to be pumped you're going after a goal. But when you look at just a low barrier to entry, again, you can do push-ups and pull-ups in most places, right? And if that's a thing, hey, my mom can bang out 10 pull-ups. She's strong. She's stronger than most dads out there. They can't pull up themselves, right? So that's something to anchor that motivation. I love it. I'd be curious from your perspective, because I think it's important, as we mentioned, all the BS that's out there. What do you see as being harmful information on the internets that, especially for women, anything that you think that really is annoying you probably the most right now, that's just harmful?
Oh, there's so much. Just kidding.
No, there is for sure.
Yeah, there is a lot. Well, going along with what we were just talking about, the focus on being skinny or just being a smaller version of yourself rather than getting stronger. And weight loss usually will follow as you focus on getting stronger. I love Jordan Syatt had Meg Squats on, I think that was her, on his podcast. And she said she was newly postpartum and she had a weight goal. And then she's like, it's her deadlift weight. It wasn't like a weight loss goal that she wanted to hit a number on the scale. It was like how much she wanted to lift. So I thought that was really cool, just shifting that focus. But I see a lot of women like wanting to cut carbs. I still see that. And it just surprises me. And maybe it's because I'm like surrounded by all this fitness information all the time that I'm just surprised a lot of people still think that's what they should be doing in order to lose weight. But it just really comes down to your overall calorie intake. You can have carbs and you should have carbs like for energy, and but just being more mindful of your overall calorie intake rather than trying to just like slash carbs or slash sugar. Like I overheard the other day, just these girls talking about how one is going to do a 10-day sugar fast and like not eat sugar. And I was just like, oh no, like you don't have to do that. Like you can have the like treats and foods that you love in moderation and still lose weight. Again, it comes down to your overall calorie intake. I know that you did that cookie challenge, right? Where you had a cookie every day. And so that one gets me. And I just see a lot of that, like, especially in these like postpartum Facebook groups, women asking for advice, and a lot go to like, yeah, the carbs, sugar, intermittent fasting, which could work for some people if you enjoy that style of eating, but for a lot, it's torturous and hard to do, but they're just trying to like grit through it. But there's just a better way. And then trying to just do cardio to lose weight is another one I still see a lot, rather than, you know, going and doing lifting weights, and just focusing on, like, you could just lift weights and focus on your steps rather than just trying to like kill yourself running if you don't, especially if you don't enjoy running or endurance things. But yeah, those are a lot of things I still see. And it, like I said, it surprises me still, maybe just because I'm involved, like surrounded by so much like good fitness advice all the time, but it's still things that people are circulating around.
Well, it's surprising. It used to surprise me, but it doesn't surprise me because it depends on that circle you just mentioned. You're around fitness influencers that you prefer, that the more evidence-based, you're around good coaches, you're in the mentorship with me. And it's like, we're just aware. And let's keep this in mind. I think this is the really interesting thing. 10 years ago, something like that, maybe, like, when did you really get into fitness in general? Like ballpark, when you're like, I'm into exercise. How long ago was that?
Yeah. So really, I've always been active. Like, I swam on the swim team in high school and like to work out. I used to try to run to be healthy and fit, and I hated it. And so it wasn't until like 16 years ago when I started doing personal training, that's when I really fell in love with it, because my mindset shifted from exercising to like look a certain way or be thin, to exercising to get strong, or, you know, running to PR at this race, or, you know, I had like more of a purpose than just like aesthetics, I guess. So yeah, about 16 years ago.
Okay, so 16 years ago, you didn't know that strength training was a thing. And let's also think about where society was 16 years ago. I remember when I was in high school, it was weird to be the guy in the mezzanine that was working out. It was weird. And then every year after, you see it more and more. And now it's like, talk to any person and they know that it's not like working out is for the athletes and the bodybuilders. It's something everyone knows they should do. Like, we all know we should do it. But 10 to 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't known. And so everyone's going to get a delayed effect of appreciating, okay, everyone knows they should exercise. Okay, let's exercise. And so they're going to make the same mistakes that we made years ago. We should do more cardio. We should just do running. Like, of course, they're going to be delayed on the information because they're just the pervasive idea of eat less, move more is still out there. It's still the way that people get into it. And so it's not surprising to me at this point, because I've started to, like, even when I got into online, I saw how many questions were coming in that were just, to me, basic. But I appreciate, if you're not in the right circles, you're not around the right information, it's not going to be relevant to you. You're going to make the same mistakes routinely. Now, they're going to think sweating is key. Like, they're going to think that, you know, strength training is something you could do. And it's interesting too, because as you just said, and I totally agree, it's like step counts more important than if you want to do a bunch of cardio. Cardio is important for cardiovascular fitness. It's not something you have to do necessarily, but people need to appreciate, and it's going to take time, but they'll value. Strength training is something almost everyone needs to do. And it's just going to take time for culture to catch up on these things. So, you know, it kind of makes sense that it's delayed. I do want to point something out really interesting though. You know, you heard someone say sugar fast, right?
Yeah.
It's not fasting from sugar. It's eating only sugar. This is a new diet trend. We found another one. I was curious how far we were going to go with it. And now we're going all the way back to sugar. This is fascinating that I get to teach you this. Apparently, there's a certain metabolic system that people are going off of. They have some justification. And you basically cut out any fats and protein, and you eat only carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates. You intentionally want the sugar. You intentionally want the fast-acting carbs. You eat it all day, and then after a day or so, or certain days, you'll then have some protein and fat at night, but you predominantly just eat carbs, because if you have any protein and fat in there, it actually can throw it off and you won't lose. What it apparently does is it actually can enhance your metabolism, which basically you're just going off a constant sugar rush. And so this is a new diet craze. And I mean, just like anything, it's got a name. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be sustainable. It does have me intrigued as far as like just intrigued to watch how culture takes this in, how people are going to find this new thing. It's like something in fasting, sugar fasting, whatever it is. I mean, there's been protein fasting, like protein modified fast. It's like anything to do something inconsistent, right? Anything but consistent dieting is going to come out. So it'll be really interesting to see how culture takes this one, because and how many other different directions can we go? Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just what the culture does. I'd be curious of this because I do believe, you know, sometimes I focus too much on the negative on social media, but I think there's a lot of positive. And so I'd be curious, what have you learned in the last few years or changed your mind on in the last few years when it comes to health, training, nutrition, anything from social media? What's kind of been like new information to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say a lot, because when I first started training 16 years ago, it was more of like high intensity, like functional training, what is what they called it. And it was just like I feel so bad when I think back, but it was all I knew. And it was how I was trained as a trainer. Just like I would take clients through, they would do an exercise, and then we would do active recoveries. So they were like never stopping, you know, they never stopped moving the whole workout. They were like sweating and sore. Like that was the whole like goal, was to get them like sweaty and sore. And honestly, it wasn't until the past, I would say the past 5 or 6 years is when I've really gotten into like lifting heavy weights, and not because like I said, I'm super into endurance sports. And so I just really enjoyed that mode of like working out. I feel like if I wasn't like sweaty and sore, that it wasn't a good workout. And that's from finding like the mentorship with Jordan and Mike. And then just like, I don't know, finding more and more accounts of like people women accounts like focusing on getting strong, lifting heavy weights. That's really shifted my mode of training, like personally, into lifting heavier. And I love it. I didn't think like having to rest like 2 to 3 minutes between sets, that was like torture at first. And it's something that a lot of my clients deal with. Like, what do I do when I'm supposed to be resting? Like, but so that's definitely changed a lot. And I love it now. I love like being able to lift heavier weights as time goes on, and challenging myself there. Another way, I think, just my like outlook on nutrition has changed a ton. I've learned so much more about like how to actually get enough protein in. And I wish that was something that I knew more about when I was doing more endurance sports. Because honestly, I feel like my nutrition has never been that great. But during that time, it was just like, eat whatever. I don't know. I would actually not eat like desserts or sugar like Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Saturday, I would allow myself to like have sugars or desserts and stuff. So that I've completely changed that. Cause I realized I'm like, it wasn't a really healthy way. I don't think, of looking at food. And cause then what would happen Friday through Sunday is I would eat all the desserts cause it was restricted during that time. And so I've like learned how to balance having like some of my like foods that I really enjoy in moderation throughout the week without having to restrict a ton. And just not without having it to like, throw me off my nutrition. So yeah, I've learned a ton. It's kind of like jumbled, but just how to like, again, shift my mindset from, focusing on like fueling my body so I can get stronger, so I can lift heavier weights, so I can run farther, run faster, kind of shifting my mindset from only doing these things so I can look a certain way or lose weight to performing or getting stronger has been like a huge change.
Very important for more females to hear that, right? Because as I mentioned, people are still caught in not just being skinny and trying to get skinny and doing cardio. It's just like, give yourself some empowerment. And the way that you described it is very valuable. You love it. Like, it's an enjoyment, right? Like, few people are like in cardio. There's a handful of people that will be like, I really love running. And if someone says, if I had a client, and I have had clients, it's like, it's my peace time. I just like, it's quiet. It's like, we're fucking getting you to run then, because that's a form of physical movement that's enjoyable. Always chase that, right?
Yeah.
But then if you're, and it always breaks my heart, you know, in the spring when you see overweight people running. And I'm like, part of me says, okay, maybe they enjoy it. But there's a good chance when you can see just someone's running technique and their fitness status, I'm like, you're running to lose weight. And this is just, I love that you're trying. It just breaks my heart because you could be doing something lower barrier to entry and more sustainable. And strength training is that. Like, this is the really cool thing that you just mentioned. You do something heavy, so heavy you don't want to pick it up for 3 minutes. Like, that's the key, right? And people like get, you know, like, man, that's such a long rest. I'm like, maybe you're going too late, because if it's heavy enough, you want that rest. And then, you know, you walk around because you want your steps anyways. If you're concerned about cardio, walk around, go do another set. So it's so valuable for women to realize that there's an enjoyment in it, that you become passionate about it. Because if you're just showing up to train, I always call that working out, not training. Training puts you towards a goal. You are training to adapt and become better at something. And everyone needs this. Yeah. Everyone needs to want to be better at something to get better. It's not going to happen by accident. And like, if you're just happy to show up for the first, you know, 2 to 3 months, I get it. The sooner you become curious with the process, the more involved you're going to be in it. It's just that simple, right? Now, I'm curious. This is going big picture, but it's been on top of my mind. Seeing all the things in fitness, like especially the new age things with AI and the new weight loss drugs. Where do you, because I don't have an answer, I'm just super curious, where do you predict fitness is going to be in like 10 to 20 years?
Ooh, that is a big question. Yeah, with AI, because I know a lot of people, I've had clients, you know, new clients say, you know, when I ask, well, what have you been doing for your, you know, workout program, or what have you been doing like workout wise? And a lot of them say Chat GPT, like they go to AI to kind of get their workouts. And I played around with it as well. Like, hey, I need to get 120 grams of protein in today. Like, what do you suggest I eat? Or I don't know, how do you suggest I do that? Like, there's so many ways you can use it to help you with your like fitness and nutrition. So I think it could be valuable to provide people with more tools to work out, to know what to do, and maybe help with like recipe ideas or meal ideas. And I know some people have been messing around with like taking a picture of their plate and asking it to like, what are the calories and macros? And I think they've said it's not very accurate. So maybe it'll get better, and that will make tracking your intake a little bit easier. So I don't know, but I feel like with that, you know, with coaching and everything, they're missing like that human touch. And I know AI kind of tries to have that. There's all these like memes about, you know, them walking with their Chat GPT friend and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I think it could be a very useful tool, AI, and for coaches too. I've kind of messed around with it. Like, hey, my client, this is the situation with my client. What would you suggest? And kind of like seeing what it says, which is interesting. And then with the weight loss drugs, I think that those have been amazing for people who need it, to help them start building like good habits with their nutrition and with their workouts. So I hope that more people who are on the weight loss drugs, like try to change their habits, I guess, like try to get more protein and strength training so that they're not losing their muscle along with their body fat. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy to think about like where everything will be. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. You're on to a lot of the things there. Basically where the trend's going when it comes to ChatGPT, everything will get better at it, right? So I do believe that you're going to have like a school of people But I always believe this is how society is going, and gradually over time, you're going to see a bigger spectrum of people who really believe in the technological advances and those who really don't. So you're always going to have the people who want to go away from it. And I think we're going to see a shift of people getting gradually more accepting. It's just like some people still don't have cell phones. Some people still have flip phones, but a lot of us don't. And because it makes our life so much easier to utilize it. And so you got to wonder how many things in the health and fitness space are going to go that way. So if ChatGPT gets smart enough where like sometimes you ask it for an exercise routine, it can be pretty good, but sometimes they're not that great because it doesn't have the actual coach's touch of understanding the information, what applies. And then from there's people who'll be like, when chat's good enough, and there's already, not to mention like people making AI smart enough. Like I know Renaissance Periodization has an app, and it's already smart enough that it'll do it. It has the exercise program by coaches, so it's already smart enough. So the technological advance is there, access to it, and then people accepting it. It's like, hey, if I can just show up for myself, tell me what to do. Those people will actually be very well served by AI. There's always going to be a demographic that needs coaches that want to talk to people. And there's also going to be a demographic who want coaches in person. This is why it's still there, right? Because there's no argument that online is more efficient for everyone, but it only serves the demographic of people who are willing to show up for themselves, still want to coach, but don't need you there all the time. That's its own demographic. There's people who need you to show up all the time. If they're going to be late, they're late for you, right? Not themselves. They don't have that level of discipline. So that's always going to be in the portion of the demographic will be interesting, because I don't know what it is. But you had mentioned something which I know Jordan always brings up, is like with the Ozempic, it's like going to make the dieting part a fair bit easier, right? Like, which is honestly, I'm kind of like inviting it. Like I feel so bad for people who cannot figure it out. Even when they have the right calories and nutrition, to do it consistently is just hard for some people. But then we're going to come in and say, make sure you get that protein, make sure it's still quality food, even if you don't have an appetite, and make sure you're strength training. So our training aspect of our job, I don't think will leave within our time period. Not for a long time anyways. The interesting thing that this is a very far jump, but it's like 10 to 20 years, probably 20-year mark, because I do think AI and robots are going to be way more commonplace. How accepting will we be? Like, how sentient can AI get, right? Because if it shows empathy, then the game's changed. But you have to program a computer, an AI, to feel pain and understand mortality for any of that to have relevance. And I don't know if they want to, because it's a dangerous thing for AI to have.
Yeah.
So it'll fake empathy, it'll fake caring. And some people currently probably have those romantic relationships with ChatGPT already. So some people it'll serve. They will have an AI robot, or like I've seen like AI mirrors, and there's like, they're fine with that. What level of society will actually want it? The really interesting thing, I encourage you to listen to a guy, Dr. Mike Israetel. He's really big on the advancements of pharmaceuticals. And this is where it gets interesting for our job, in that, so going beyond Ozempic, we got like the 4th or 5th gen drug that's in testing right now. It's going to be close to coming out, retatrutide, which like it not only helps you with your appetite better, but it also prevents the muscle wasting, and you have a higher metabolic rate. And then a step farther from that is they now have drugs that are going to be coming out where you might not even need to train to have muscle. Like it's that, yes, that's where I'm more interested, because the reason why AI is the interesting part is it's not just AI helping people be healthy and all that stuff. It's AI changing the pharmaceutical drug game, because they're the ones that are figuring out the chemical pathways and the probability of something working out or not beyond our scope of what we can even handle. So that's where I'm most interested in. Like, I can't even predict it, because it could be one of these things where which you call like an asymptote, where it's like it gets close to figuring things out and it doesn't. I personally believe pharmaceuticals are like that. There are no benefits, just trade-offs, right? Eventually something can come up, but maybe there's just a ton of benefits to these pharmaceuticals down the road. So that's my tangent on where it can go in the future. But it's something to be aware of, something to keep a pulse on, because the advancement in technology is affecting everyone's job. And it's something, as you're trying to get better at your own job, that you want to see where your avenue is, how AI can help you or hurt you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is crazy. That's interesting to think about, because I feel like there's so many mental benefits of going through like the process of lifting weight and getting stronger, and like things that you learn, like resiliency, confidence in yourself from like doing the hard work and getting the result, and like being, so that's really interesting to think about, like what will happen if somebody doesn't really have to do anything to
yeah. Well, and then I'm afraid to say that, hey, maybe they have a mental resiliency drug out there. It's like, oh, fuck this. Like, you know, you just, and this is why I say it's going to be a spectrum. There's going to be people who are taking every pill just to get the results. And there's some people who are going to be like, I'll take this one because this is where I lack, but I'm still willing to work out. And then there's going to be people who, I'm not taking any of it. Like, that's the spectrum, I think, of the world that we're going to live on in the next 20 to 30 years. I'll just be interested to see how long it takes for all those predictions to pan out. But it's, I'm so glad you ended it, because we should end it on that. Like, people need to know the hard shit is worth it, because when you accomplish something hard, you always know you feel good about that. That I always call it resistance training, because you are resisting the world, but your will to not do something. You're resisting that, right? When it feels heavy and you keep pushing, you're resisting that feeling, and that transfers to life. You showed up for yourself. You resisted not showing up. You did the workout. You pushed against. You're pushing against fucking gravity, right? And I use this analogy of like, when the weight of the world is on you, you want to have trained to dealt with it. That's what training is fundamentally. So I think that's a great way to leave it off. I really appreciate this. I do want to know one last thing. What's your most recent ambition? What are you really excited coming down the pipeline?
Good question. With my own personal fitness journey, so like I said, I've taken kind of a break from endurance sports, but I've really been having an itch to get back into it. So I would love to qualify for Boston again. So when I raced Boston, I actually had an injury right before, so I wasn't really trained. And so I wasn't like, they had like this heat wave that year. So it was like super abnormally hot. And so I didn't really get to race it or go, run as fast as I would have wanted. So that's, I think, what I want to work towards is getting in, training for a half marathon, and then qualifying for Boston. So
I love it. That's amazing. That's not an easy feat. If you said, I want to go back and do a marathon again with having 4 boys, I've been like, hell yeah. It's like, oh, you're going to try to qualify. Holy fuck. You're competitive. I love that. That's awesome. That's so great, because that takes a different kind of person to have that attitude.
And the good thing is, since I'm getting older, the qualifying times are not as hard as like when I was younger. So hopefully that'll play to my benefit.
For sure. Well, I'm excited to see that pan out for you. Thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you let people know where they can find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. It's at Crushing It with Christy. ChristyEwing.com is my website. But yeah, mostly on Instagram there, where you can find me.
Perfect. We'll leave that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining today, Christy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for Christy. I really valued having a mother on here to give this kind of information, because I could try to give it, but you need to hear from someone who's been through pregnancy, worked with other individuals going through such a difficult time of pre and postnatal, and going through motherhood. And I would give very similar, and I have given basically the same advice. You try to do the best you can to be healthy when you're pregnant. You try to make sure they're getting the right amount of protein, try to get fiber, but it's like, even before that, we should have already set up these habits. So you know what the good habits look like. Then when you're in your pregnancy, make sure you have a multivitamin so you get a minimum effective dose of all the nutrients in case you're actually deficient, in case you can't stomach a lot of food, which some females can't in the first trimester and some all the way through. So we want to set ourselves up even before the pregnancy and during the pregnancy. Still going to have that necessity for protein in any way that you can get it in. I even had some clients who really did like meat, but they changed into more plant-based meat because it was the only way they could get their protein number in, which is fine. You got to figure out where you're at and what fits for you. And that postnatal period, psychologically and physically, is a really hard time because you want to get after it. You want to go after the fat loss because you just put on body weight. But that patience that she talked about is so vital. Be patient. You know you're going to get time after. You will be able to get this weight off. But what's way more important, just think, is it worth the cost of managing feeling this way for a little bit? If you know your kid's going to be healthy, you're going to have a healthy baby at the end of this. Most women, most parents are going to say, yeah, it's worth it. I just got to be patient right now. And that's not to say you can't have a slight calorie deficit. No, she handled it different. And I would handle it different depending on the individual. I've had some individual clients where they said, yeah, I want to get into calorie tracking as soon as I can. And I try to push away from it. But if they're ready, it's like, okay, well, then we're going to have high calories. You're actually going to have way higher than your normal maintenance because we want to almost just let the body's need and demand to make the milk to be a part of the metabolic rate. And you're not going to see a lot of weight loss right now, but you at least get into the habits that you're going to need. And once your body is ready, once you're out of that breastfeeding, then we can enhance the calorie deficit more. And that can work for some people. And some people just aren't ready to track. And that's a great approach. As you said, just focus on whole foods, make sure you're getting more than enough food. And then that postnatal is going to be so important for movement. And I love that she mentioned, even right away, just start breathing better. Get out of your chest because you're so not used to using your diaphragm in a normal way because you're used to having a kid there. So these little tangible steps that she talked about are so helpful for females. And then just being a mom, having this idea of, I want to be the inspiration for my kids. That was my motivation for my parents. Like my parents inspired me because they worked so hard to make, and that's why I train so hard. That's why I'm so involved in what I do, because if I can't be in good shape and be a good trainer, I'm really getting rid of the gift that they've given me the opportunity to have to chase the passion that I wanted to. So I always took that responsibility that I have to show that I know what I'm doing. And that applies to you being a parent. It's so hard to grasp that concept, to really embody that concept. I can't say that we have a perfect magical potion or mindset trick that'll work. I wish we did. I wish we had a way that we could get your subconscious level of thinking. If you have a hard time showing up for yourself and exercise despite having kids, I wish we had something like this. And some people will pitch it to you. But what I'll recommend you consider is that it's at a very deep subconscious level. And I just encourage people to look for it. I encourage people to try to embody it. Start to talk like, I am a person who believes in training. I am someone who works out versus I'm trying to work out. Yeah, I know I should. Like if you get into these self-defeatist terms, you're going to embody that identity. So you want it to be at a subconscious level. It has to embody your identity. And so start using it. It's the fake it till you make it, or rather I phrase it, practice till you become it. Okay, I am someone who trains because my kids need someone to look up to. I'm going to be someone my kids, even there, I don't even say I want to, I'm going to be someone my kids look up to. And if you just say those words, I think, try that, right? Whatever magical words hit you at a deep core level that it makes you want to move your body. And so if you try saying, I'm going to be the person that my kids look up to because of my fitness, that really is, and say it, like say it out loud, say it to yourself, say it every day. How do you not show up for your fitness? Because now it's inside you. Now you're saying, I am. And that's how you program your subconscious level of thinking, is you talk to it very literally. And it's so important for mothers because so much of the home life can fall responsible to them. It's not that it should, I just know culturally it tends to. And so it's so easy for mothers to nurture their kids, worry about the kids, not themselves. But always remember, you're showing up for them. When you show up for themselves, when you show up for yourself, to be the best version of yourself. And it's really hard to believe it until you experience it. And like, I'll go back to the whole discussion I had. It's like a religion, right? And once you start to step into this church of fitness, yeah, by the way, I'm not a religious person. I'm just saying that's how I know it can feel. Like if you're outside the church, it just sounds like people are singing hymns in there and you don't understand why. But once you get into a new experience that you get over 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 months, everything changes. First hump is 2 to 3 weeks. Things don't feel as sore. And you see a little bit of progress, but you don't see that much progress usually. Then 2 to 3 months, everything changes. You're a different person. And just sustain that for the next 2 to 3 years. and then your life is flipped upside down for the positive. And again, having that fire from it being about your kids is going to be the thing that drives you forward. And having the idea of a female focus on strength, be strong. Because women always have this idea of nurturing, being the mother that nurtures, the kind, the soft. And, skinny is really the ideology that was going on so much pervasively throughout the 90s. When you go watch, and I think most of us are very familiar with this, but go back and watch some of the 90s movies, even early 2000s, the woman who's, seemed to be the girl in the movie. I look back at it now, I'm like, ooh, she needs protein. I didn't realize how small their arms were, but that was the look, right? It was the skinny look, and that was what you wanted. Now I look at it so much differently, and culture is shifting towards have some muscle, not necessarily, as everyone will say, be bulky. It takes so much work to be bulky. Trust me. I work hard to get bulky, and it's easy for me to grow muscle compared to most people. It's not going to happen by accident, especially in a fat loss phase. You're just going to maintain that muscle better. And so the other major thing there is we're not even talking about aesthetics. Actually, we say the word strong. We're talking about your ability to move weight. She talks about the deadlift, the bench press, or the back squat. Be able to be a strong person and exhibit strength, taking those 2 to 3 minute rests and then do it again so that you're even stronger and you can put the weight up heavier. And again, you want to talk about inspiring your kids. It's like, wow, my mom can do like 20 push-ups better than I can. My mom can do 10 pull-ups. My mom can deadlift 200 pounds, 300 pounds, stronger than most dads. How about that, right? How about that for motivation? Just make it about what you can do. And now you get to actually share, if you have a husband, the idea of what strong means to your kids. Hey, my mom's strong. It's always this masculine quality that we see within the dad in the family, which it certainly still can and should be, but it can be with a mom too. And they're going to look at you in the best way possible, that you're exhibiting strength and you're showing, especially if daughters, you're showing your daughter, I'm not worried just about my aesthetics. I certainly want to be healthy and stuff like that, but I'm worried about how strong I am for you and how the things I can do for you. That's going to inspire so much. So I highly recommend you take in that idea and push away from all these old narratives around what it means to be in shape. And I have to just quickly touch base on that sugar diet. Really new things coming up. I actually thought we'd seen all the diets, but I'm also now realizing we'll never see all the diets. There's always going to be something new coming up, but the sugar fast is hilarious. My favorite part about this, I'm going to just go on a tangent on this, was Mark Bell is where I heard it from. Mark Bell has been through the totally all around the boat on diets. The only thing he hasn't done is a vegan diet. And I mean, he got me even into the carnivore diet. I'm not going to lie, just watching some of the people he had on. And he went from being an overweight powerlifter. If you check out Mark Bell, that's his story. Overweight powerlifter, like he was overweight, but he was a world-class powerlifter. Guy had squat records like crazy. I think he bench pressed like over 800 pounds with a shirt on the sauce, but still very strong individual. And then he went from doing keto. Keto actually helped him lose so much weight, totally changed his life. And he's like, man, war on carbs. Like, we don't need carbs. It's ridiculous. And then he went into carnivore, and then he was just more low carb. And then he was into fasting. He said fasting was like just magic. It felt great to him. He's just so open to so many fitness ideas. And I actually really applaud him for it. He allows his curiosity, allows people on his platform to just showcase their idea. And he tests it. He doesn't just say, hey, this is stupid. He allows the idea other people have and he experiments with it. And I think that's really cool. It can be dangerous when you're pushing on these different ideas that can actually cause more issues because we're talking about diet fats, right? Then he gets into fasting. He literally says, I lost the war on carbs. And fasting is no longer a thing. Sugar fasting is the thing. So he's so pumped about it. Now, the thing to keep in mind about, if you do check out his website, his Instagram, he is really big into running. He's been big into running in the last like 2 to 3 years now, because he was always a powerlifter. Now he's into running. And so he was also really big on steps. Like he does a ton of walking. He would say on his podcast, 5 miles a day. And that was even before his running. So he's running a lot, does a ton of training. The guy's in great shape. And then so what he does on this sugar fast diet is he just has nothing but sugar all day, and it's going to fuel that behavior very well. Is that going to work for a sedentary person at a desk? I don't know. That's why I'm just curious to see how this pans out as people experiment with it. It's no different than carnivore. I really fell into, oh man, carnivore could really help people. This is so cool. And I did enjoy it. I really did. And then stories come out. Oh, actually, people have ridiculously high cholesterol. People do have digestion issues of constipation and diarrhea, both ends of the spectrum. There's actually even like Instagram accounts you can watch, like Carnivore Gone Wrong, and seen like one guy talk about cholesterol deposits were adding up. So he's like, I had to go off the carnivore diet. Like, just not good for everyone. It's not a panacea of helping everyone. So that's why I'm saying I'm excited to see how it pans out. I'm excited to see it in an entertaining way. And, I'm similar to Mark in like, I do like experiment. I experimented with intermittent fasting. I did keto like a client did it, just to understand it and just to see the drawbacks and positives. I experimented with carnivore and I really enjoyed it. I knew it wasn't sustainable. So I like to know what people are going through, and that's why they're doing it. So who's to say I wouldn't try it? There's a decent chance I'm going to try it because I am curious about it. I do like candy, but like to only have candy and not have protein, that's a mind fuck for me. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. But back on the topic of what we talked with Christy, I do really, again, love how she was interested about how, AI can help. She had talked about this great idea that I think more people need, and just a fundamental basis. It's not there yet, but hey, ChatGPT, what could I do if I want to hit my protein goal? And I recommend people do this. Like, if you have a hard time, you're not ready to track calories, it's like a good bridge of, hey, ChatGPT, I have this food. How much of each should I have? If I want to have, Greek yogurt, berries, granola, and I want to hit this protein calorie goal. And it'll tell you the weight. Like, it'll just tell you how to figure it out, and you don't have to figure it out yourself. It's really handy. And so I do see that's the avenue. Like, it's going to be a great nutrition coach for, if you know what to ask it, it'll tell you. And there's, again, already AIs that have the capacity if you trust it. So there is a future there. And I know it sounds like I went really, really big picture, but I do always think big picture and the future and how it's going to affect our whole fitness status. But I have to highlight what she said, and I tend to forget this because part of me is excited to see how we can help more people with the pharmaceutical, with these things that I just see so many people struggle with. So like things like Ozempic and then the next phase, retatrutide, like I see this helping so many people that have such a hard time. And people have a hard time showing up for training. Like I see that element, and could we actually be just better at other jobs if we didn't have to worry about it as much? But she hits it on the head really well when she says, but it's important to do hard things. Like it's important to get the benefit from strength training. And I almost forget about that as I'm excited about this new futuristic AI. So I love that she hit it on the head because it's so important that we all respect that. We have to do hard things in life. And the training is the best way to simulate that. Simulate doing something hard. And I'll say it again, like I said it earlier on the podcast. When the gravity of life hits you, can you resist it? That's what training's all about. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please check out Christy's info if you are a mom that's really interested in pre and postnatal coaching. She's a great coach for it. She's got great information. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a mom or anyone you might think would be interested in pre and postnatal nutrition and fitness. Any moms that want to know more about nutrition and fitness, this is a great episode for them as far as I'm concerned. And please leave a review. It's always going to help this little podcast grow because it's the only way it grows. People know more about it. But either way, I'm always going to thank you. I love you so much for spending your time routinely listening to me rant away on this podcast, especially if you got this far on the podcast. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening today. And always remember, life is not about the pursuit of happiness, but rather the happiness within your pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.